Hey, Michelle, how's it going?
Hey, Lindsay. Are you a rule follower?
Well, I would say I mean, I've been known to jaywalk. I will admit that. But in terms of
Yes,
big rules, I think there's a reason they exist and I try to follow them. I pay taxes, I do all the things you're supposed
y-
to do. But
that's
little things
good.
like I will cross the street, because I lived in New York and that's just normal. It's kind of weird to me when people just stand. Do you jaywalk, Michelle? I guess with kids you don't, right? What are your
It
thoughts
really
on
de- it
jaywalking?
really de- it really does depend. No, with kids, I definitely try and be more careful than if I were by
Yeah,
myself. I definitely do
of
jaywalk,
course.
but the thing is, when I'm in a new place, like right now, I'm like just like temporarily living in this town, and I don't know if other people think it's okay to do that.
Jaywalk too.
I'm used
Sure.
to it being, oh,
Yeah.
everybody does that, so it's fine. So
Everybody
now
does.
I
Yeah.
find myself
Yeah.
kind of looking around, and I because I
Looking
don't want to be the
around.
one
Yeah.
person who does it.
Well, I think you're more likely to find jaywalkers on like in the Northeast, the East Coast, Mid Atlantic, city urban areas versus the West, where
Yeah.
out here I've seen a lot more rule followers when it comes to not jaywalking. Michelle, what is jaywalking, by the way? We should know. We should have our
Yes,
listeners know.
jaywalking is when you cross the street even if you're not supposed to, even if the
Yeah.
little walking man isn't there.
Right, exactly. And maybe you look both sides and there are literally no cars coming for a
Right.
long time.
Right.
You know,
Exactly.
in New York City, I mean, people just that's all they do is, bigger
Yes.
cities, urban areas, that's what they do all the time. So, that's one of the areas where I would say I don't always follow the rules.
Yes.
What about you, Michelle? What do you think?
And otherwise, I think I'm a pretty big rule follower, actually. Not to a ridiculous amount where if it really doesn't make sense, but I I think it comes from my dad. My dad is a big rule follower, so I think I kind of caught on to that.
Well, that's good. I mean, that's how you have an organized society, right? Like a
Yeah,
society that works and things run and everything works out,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
This is what we're getting into today, right? Rules or exceptions to rules.
yeah.
Michelle, do we have another episode that we want to send our listeners over to?
Yep. So maybe you want to learn different rules to grammar or different things, right? We talk about grammar rules and if they should be broken, right? We talk about that all the time on All Ears English. But here we go. Episode 2266, just recently we did. We made it or we did it. How to know the difference.
Yes, and I want to take a minute just to say thank you to some of our amazing listeners for leaving us a review in Apple Podcasts or wherever they listen. So I want to say thank you to Keisuke from the US on July 29th. He wrote us an amazing 5-star review,
Aw,
Michelle. It
thank
is incredible.
you.
I will send it to you when we finish up today. It's great, by the way.
Aw.
And then thank you to Angling Darmo from Indonesia on July 31. Also a 5-star review. Amazing. And
Wow.
Ariam 967 from Saudi Arabia on August 3rd, my birthday.
Ah,
Thank you for the birthday review. Also a 5-star review. Oh my gosh, Michelle.
that's so great.
Amazing.
Thank you
Guys,
guys so much.
yeah, and when you leave your rating and review, we will try to announce your name on the show. So go tell us what you think in Spotify or Apple Podcasts, and you may hear your name on the show. All right.
Definitely. Love it. Thank you
Good.
guys again so much. Keep it coming. Um,
Yes.
so today we are going to talk about this expression that Lindsay touched on a little bit. It's with the word rule, and this is really useful for giving explanations or reasons for something happening or not happening even. Lindsay, what is it?
Okay, here's the expression for today, guys. Write this down. The expression is the exception, not the rule. So we're referring to something, right?
Yes, yes, exactly. And this means that something is pretty rare.
Uh
Um,
huh.
we're going to explain more about that and give a lot of examples, so don't you worry. Sometimes you might also hear the exception rather than the rule, but that to me sounds a little more formal. What do you think, Lindsay?
Yes, I agree. I'd say it's the exception, not the rule. On the other
Yeah.
hand, Michelle, I've also heard the exception proves the rule. This is the exception
Oh.
that proves the rule. So that's to add another layer of complexity. But we'll start in a simple way, and we'll really just get right into it with some examples.
Okay.
Right?
All right. So let's do some examples. Here we go. We got a couple role plays for you.
All right, here we go. So she's late.
I know it's frustrating, but with her, that's the exception, not the rule.
Okay, so what are you saying here about the person that is late?
I'm
What are you saying?
saying that typically this person is on time. Right. So this
Yes.
is out
Yes.
of the norm. This is not usual. So I'm basically saying give her a break. This is trust me, this doesn't happen often. So
Mm.
it's an explanation. I'm saying give this person a little grace.
Yes, give the person grace. We've talked a lot this
Yes, a
summer
lot.
about giving grace, giving ourselves some grace. Last few episodes, guys, if you have no idea what you're talking about, you may not be following the podcast, but you want to make sure you're doing, hit that follow button. All right. So
Yes.
here's another role play, right, Michelle?
Okay.
Here we go.
Here we
Yeah.
go. I'm so sorry. I totally forgot to bring your book.
Oh, don't worry about it.
I promise this is the exception, not the rule with me.
Yeah. So
Okay.
you're saying this is not normal for me. I
Right.
feel like that word normal or norm is coming up a lot today.
Right, exactly. This is saying this is the exception, not the rule. It's something out of the norm. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
you can use it to explain these situations to keep that connection. Oh, this is the exception, not the rule.
Yeah, exactly. And there are other ways we could say this because I suppose it's a little less common than certain other things we might say to say the same thing,
Right,
right?
right.
But there's another
Exactly.
variation on this expression that we want our listeners to know about too,
Right.
right?
So this is just one little change. So it's the exception to the rule.
Sure.
Lindsay,
Yeah.
do you think this is any different? Do you hear this one about the same,
The
or
exception to
how
the
do you think?
rule. I think it's the same thing, same idea. I think our listeners are very familiar with this due to grammar rules.
Mm.
And grammar rules in their own languages and grammar rules in English,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
I mean, we talk a lot about the rule and then here's this
exactly.
huge list of exceptions to that rule. Right.
Exactly. And I think a while back we did an episode about how maybe it's like music, how when you learn something, you kind of have to learn the rules and then you learn how to break them or do something different.
Yeah, that's totally true. I mean, that's how true art gets created is painting outside the lines, and not to
Yes.
use cliches or anything
Yeah.
here.
No, but it's true.
Oh,
It's
cliche.
true. But I
Yeah.
think this one is pretty much the same, but it might put more of a positive spin on something because it doesn't use the word not. So maybe for explaining how something should happen. So let's give a
Yeah.
little example of that.
Okay, here we go. The parties always start at 6. The exception to the rule would be if there are 2 in one day, then we would start at 7.
Okay, got it.
All right, so that's just one example of where we would change the expression slightly and just say the exception to the rule. Yeah?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, Michelle, we are back here. So as we were talking about what we're actually saying here, I feel like the word norm came up a lot, right?
Norm.
Normal, the norm.
What's out of the
Um,
norm, what's not the
right.
norm, right? Yeah, so that is a good one, guys. So norm, right? That would just stand for normal, and we could say the norm, right? That's not
Yeah,
the
the norm.
norm. So because you wouldn't say that's not the normal. You would say that's not normal, right?
Mhm.
When you
Or
add a
or you
the,
might just
yeah,
yeah.
go ahead.
Exactly. Or just to bring it down to like kind of more conversational language. Let's say I was late to that coffee shop, right? I might say something like, normally I'm not late,
Mm-hmm,
right?
mm-hmm.
That might be the most person to person street
Right,
language,
right.
right? Usually or normally I'm not late. I'm so sorry today. Like, my dog got sick and all this
Yeah,
stuff
right.
happened. Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, and sometimes life is full of these things, and we have to be able
sure.
to express this when you're. It's not that you're necessarily making excuses, but you are giving a little bit of a peek into why something might happen or who you are as a person, especially if somebody doesn't know you very well. To use these
Yeah.
expressions to explain.
Oh, it's true. But don't say it if you're actually perpetually late,
Yes,
right?
no, you
So
got
I don't know if you know anyone who's just a late person.
excuse
Are
me.
you a late person, Michelle? I don't know. I was late today to our recording. So who am I to speak?
That's what I'm late
uh,
sometimes too. Yeah, I mean, I can be late, but I think I've gotten better. My brother is the worst.
I have a few friends who are, and not from other parts of the world where it's more standard to be
Yeah.
late, just American friends who are just late people. And
Yeah.
they just will show up pretty much every time, like half an hour late.
Yep.
And it's tricky, and I think, how does that happen? You know? Is it that we just leave the house too late? What are we doing?
Right.
Right?
Right.
And why am I using "we"? That could be an interesting episode right there.
Oh, I've been thinking about that a lot actually when I at restaurants lately because I would say, "Oh, are we
Yeah.
working on this?" and stuff like.
That would be a great
What
episode.
do we
Write it down,
want? What
Michelle.
are we
Let's do
ordering
that.
tonight? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. Guys, hit follow on the show. We'll cover that another day.
Yeah.
But yeah, there are people out there that are just late, even though they know, like, if they're in American culture, you should be on time or 5 minutes late at the worst. They're just late, 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 late. So it is how it is. It is what it is. What are you gonna do?
I don't know. Let's talk about a couple other words that could fit in this same idea. So the first one is outlier. Um, this is not exactly the same, but it's basically something that is outside of what is typical, right, Lindsay?
Yeah, exactly. And this one is used a lot by scientists to talk about
Yep.
results of
Yep.
things,
Stats.
studies. It's a little more academic language, but I can also use it in conversations
Right.
because it sounds smart. There aren't any outliers in our schedule, so we should be good to go.
Right. You could.
Yes,
But again,
good.
it is more useful with talking about stats and studies, things like that. But I wanted to give an example.
And I think there's a whole book titled
Outlier. I
entitled
think so.
Outliers by
Yeah.
Malcolm Gladwell, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah,
there
yeah, yeah.
is. Oh, I've never read it, but I
Me
always
neither.
I wanted to.
Wanted to read it. I think it might have been on my shelf for the last 5 years,
Yeah.
and then maybe I donated it and never read it, but have to get it back.
Yes.
Um, okay, anomaly. Ooh, we're gonna get to
Anomaly.
some high level
Ooh.
stuff now. I like it. What does it mean, Michelle?
Anomaly. So it's the same idea of outside of the norm. It's just it's a
Yeah.
fancy way of saying this is definitely gonna impress people. So you could say, "Don't worry, this is a total anomaly. This won't
Yeah.
happen every time."
It's fun to be able to have this more rare, high level
Yeah.
word, and it's not highbrow in the sense that, like, it's gonna intimidate people.
No.
It's not like
No.
academic talk. It's just rare, different. It's varied. It's interesting. So throw
Yeah.
it in there, guys.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I agree with you. There's something about this word, even though it seems like you would only see it in a textbook, it's not true. It does
No.
come up.
No. It does come up, and it should come up for our listeners, guys, as you're stretching your vocabulary, not always repeating the same words. That's how we get stuck at that B2 level, right? We want to move up to C1 into C2,
That's
99% fluency.
that's
Yeah.
right. That's exactly
All
right.
right.
So let's do a
Okay.
role play and put it all together.
Here we go. I'm ready. We are planning a picnic. I
Yeah.
love picnics.
Yeah.
Love parks in the summertime. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'll bring all the desserts.
Yeah, but there will be so much food there. Maybe it's too much.
We'll be okay.
Well, I don't want it to all go to waste.
Oh, this is the exception, not the rule. We don't do it every time.
I know, but I always try to keep the food to the minimum. The only exception to the rule would be if we had somewhere to donate it after.
Okay, well, we could work on that. It's a bit of an anomaly with these parties, so I never think of that.
Yeah, but it's important. This might be the one outlier.
Okay, I'll look into our options. Okay.
Sometimes it's a challenge to write these role plays,
Yes.
right? To bring all these together. It really is.
How
Yeah.
how
Yeah.
how could you tell?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, it's a little bit of a challenge. Yeah, I think for sure. I think typically where I would imagine to see these words is when we're talking about something societal, like
Yeah.
societal trends,
Yeah.
like inflation. I was just reading an article about inflation that it's, the cost of food, grocery prices have gone up 20% since 2019, and now it's edging down.
Yeah.
There would be ways in that kind of conversation to really bring in these words.
So you don't think
right?
the picnic conversation was appropriate here?
It's okay. I think there could have been something better, but we can stretch our minds here, Michelle. Let's
That's
go through these and see where we use them, yeah?
okay.
What
All right. Okay. So, I said, okay, you're very nervous about this food waste, Lindsay. And
I
I said,
am.
this is the
Yes.
exception, not the rule. We don't do it every time. So I'm saying this is not the norm.
Yeah, not the norm. And then I said the only exception to the rule would be if we had someone somewhere to donate it. So normally I keep it to a minimum, but there is an exception to that rule. The rule of keeping it to a minimum
Right.
is that if I have a place to donate it. So just to kind
Right.
of explain here, guys. Yes.
Right.
Yes.
And I said it's a bit of an anomaly with these parties, so I never think of that. So I'm saying we don't do this a
What
lot.
Yeah, so you're saying the fact of having the party
Yeah.
is an anomaly?
Yeah,
Okay.
so we don't have this every day, so I'm not interested in worrying about that,
Yes.
the consumption.
Right. And then I said, "Yeah, but it's important. This might be the one outlier." And what am I saying here? What is the outlier? What is it, the party or what?
That it's the outlier that we should worry about this. Like I'm saying I don't
I see.
normally worry about this, but you're saying maybe you should. Yeah, I know.
Oh, okay, got it.
Maybe I could have done a better role play for this one.
So yeah, I think there's lots of, like Malcolm Gladwell, right?
Yeah.
That is how he titled his
Yeah.
book.
Yeah.
Outliers, that's what he writes about. He writes about theories and society and trends and changes. And those are actually really interesting conversations, guys. So
Yes.
that's where you're going to see these words come up. See if you can pick up the paper, read about what's going on, and then open a conversation with a native speaker about societal trends.
Mhm.
Love it.
Mhm. Very good.
Yeah.
Societal trends or picnics, whatever you like.
Or picnics. Yes. At the picnic, you could talk about the trends in
See, there
society,
you
right? What's
go. There
changing.
you go. I love it. I love it.
All right, Michelle, any final takeaways for today? Anything?
Yeah, I just that role play wasn't the norm, but we still were able to put everything together and give these a try. Think about how you could use them in your daily life.
All right, good stuff. So, guys, hit follow on the show and leave your rating and review to get your name announced on the podcast. All right, Michelle, you have a good day. I'll talk to you soon.
Bye.
All right, bye.